These thoughts up in my head, things I never did. I took some L's, but I'm still here. I got these thoughts up in my head. I toss and turn about some things I never said. I got regrets about some things I never did. I took some risks and took some L's, but I'm still here. And I know.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm your host, Ed, and as always, journey with me as we pursue greatness in a world full of chaos. We are back again with another one. 64, I think. Don't quote me on that because I'll be forgetting numbers. But whether you have been with me since day one or you're just starting this journey, welcome. What we do here is simple. We try to pursue greatness in a world full of chaos. There's so much that's happening out in the world. We see it in the news. We see it in our personal lives. We struggle with it. We might worry. We might feel anxious. We might doubt ourselves. And this podcast is really simply set to try to break that stigma, allowing those things to hold us back when we know that we're worth so much more than our anxiety, so much more than our worry, so much more than our doubt. So we do our best to try to pursue greatness of what we're called to do. And my job is to try to encourage and motivate. So I hope that I can do that. If you like what you see, obviously, thank you for being here. And so that's kind of the gist of what we do here. I want to say shout out to everybody over at TikTok that has jumped on board. I have hit 300 followers. I know that might not be a lot for some, but for me, it's 300 more than what I thought I was going to get. So very grateful for all of you, to all the new followers over on Instagram as well. Shout out to y'all. I appreciate the support. Once again, as always, we try to pursue greatness in a world full of chaos. This podcast is dedicated toward that, looking at anxiety and emotions and fears, a lot of things that I personally struggle with, and hopefully I can give some insight on how we can break through that and kind of grow from those things that try to hinder us. All right. So if you are new and you're trying to figure out what we do, where we are, and where we're at, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go ahead and go over to Instagram at Overthinking Thoughts Pod, and then you're going to go over to TikTok at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. You're going to follow both of those. Then you're going to go on YouTube and you're going to look up Overthinking Thoughts Podcast, and you're going to subscribe to that so you can see the visuals and see how we produce this thing every Thursday, which is really makeshift. As you can see, I'm in my son's room. There's maintenance stuff going on in the front, and my other son is playing Fortnite. So it's like, y'all probably don't want that happening during the podcast. So I figured let's just relocate. We praying for like an actual permanent studio. That's gonna be our prayer for 2024, is to get something that we can just call our own. We believe in God for that. So there's that. So also, if you want to stream the podcast, we are on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google, pretty much wherever you find your streaming podcast. So make sure you like, subscribe, and support. I think that's all the announcements we have. So this week I kind of want to build off of what we talked about last week, but in a different sense. So last week it was New Year. Now what? This week, I want to talk about something that I've been impacted by personally. It's your change of direction, right? So in 2023, you might have thought that you were headed on a certain road, and now you're starting to realize in 2024 that maybe there's a different route. Maybe there's a change in a job, or change in a relationship, or change in the people that you used to kick it with. Maybe there's a change in your attitude. And maybe as you're trying to elevate to the next level, you're starting to realize that the road that you're heading on, or the route that you were going, isn't necessarily the road you're supposed to be on. And I think what happens is a lot of times that we get really comfortable with where we are, and we just kind of hit cruise control, and we'll just kind of cruise on through and let things happen. And then when it's time to get off the exit, we just keep going. Whether we're afraid to get off, whether we're distracted and we miss it, whether we're stopping every single time that we get there, there's always something. And this change of direction, I guess I started thinking about it just because of like things that I've been wanting to do personally. So I've been wanting to get up early, get in my word. I've been wanting to go to sleep at a reasonable time. And I just don't. And it kind of goes back to the discipline route, right? Like, so I think when discipline meets comfort, you find conflict. So when you're trying to discipline yourself, but you're very comfortable in what you do, there's a conflict that arises. Because on the one hand, you know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I know I'm supposed to be on this road. I know I'm supposed to stay focused. I know I'm supposed to be going this way. I'm passionate about it. And on some days I'm motivated. But then on this other side, there's this comfort of like, man, I really don't feel like doing this right now. I just want to get 20 more minutes of sleep, or I want to get I want to do this or I want to do that, right? And we get so caught up in our ways that I think we also take so much for granted. One of those things being time. And I truly believe that time is something that we think we have infinite amounts of, but we don't. Time is, it moves fast. I got a son that's about to be 3. And I am sitting here thinking to myself, wow, like I remember when we first found out that we were expecting. I remember when we went to the hospital. I remember when he was born. Like, and now all of a sudden he's saying words. He's walking. He's got interest in things. Growth is inevitable, and he is adapted to everything that he's going through, every challenge he's faced, every new opportunity. Like, there's still moments that he's growing, but he's growing and he's learning. And if there's one thing I learned from my youngest son, it's that you have to adapt to all new things that come your way. You can't be afraid of it, although there may be some nerves. And sometimes we get scared because we are so unsure of the unknown. We want what's comfortable because we're used to it. But if it's anything that is different from our norm, there's 2 things you could do. You could either shrink or you can grow. And ideally, we need to grow, because if we stay in the shrunken state, we'll never fully blossom into the full potential of what we were called to do. We'll never achieve what it is that we're supposed to achieve. And then we stay stagnant. And stagnation is a place I don't want to be, and I don't want you to be there either. So we got to keep moving forward. But there's this sense of, well, I'll get to it tomorrow, or I'll get to it the next day, or I'll get to it the next day. Who's to say that the next day happens? Who's to say that tomorrow is something that is absolutely guaranteed? And I think it's really good that we don't know if it's guaranteed, because can you imagine all the things that may not have been accomplished if you knew that you were going to have that? You'd be like, oh, I got tomorrow. Like, I know it's coming. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to just sleep. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But there's so many people that wish they had their time back. There's so many people that wish that they could change. There's so many people that are no longer here that thought tomorrow was going to come. And that's something that we really have to be aware of in the sense of how we move and how we act. So I thought about calling this like change of behavior, but I really want to call it change of direction, because as we're progressing in life, right? You might hit a detour, or you might be walking and you hit a closed door. What are you going to do? You standing there hoping that things will just happen. It may not. So then what is your next step? How do you adjust? How do you adapt? How do you embrace the opportunity in front of you? Do you take the closed door as, oh, well, this isn't meant for me and this is just terrible? Or do you look at it as, there must be another door that has something way greater than what I thought this door possessed? You going to stand silent, or are you going to move forward and go forward? Because that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for progression. We're looking for growth. We're looking for new opportunities. But I think we are also our own worst enemy in how we kind of dead our own dreams. I'm guilty of that. I think sometimes I can look at or dream about things and then instantly jump in with, that's probably not going to work, because of my history. But my history doesn't dictate my future. If I keep going off of past events, I'll never be able to fully embrace what my future self is supposed to go after. Staying in the past, living in the, oh, it didn't work here and it didn't work there, will always kill a dream. but it's our job to live out what we truly think we're supposed to go after. And if that's not meant, that's not the end of the world. It just means that the route or the way we were going wasn't necessarily where we needed to be, but there is something so much greater if you just don't give up, because there's so much out there. And some of us allow the detours to kind of slow us down. Um, like I focus back on the discipline piece because we really need to be disciplined if we want to make change. And I'll admit, like I have favored comfort more than I've favored change in times in my life, because either A, I was lazy, or B, I was afraid. I was a fearful kid. Some things I did scared and just went through it because I know I had to. Other things I tried to avoid. But I realized, like, as an adult now, like, I got kids that look up to me. I never want them to back away from a challenge. I never want them to shrink themselves. I never want them to feel like they can't accomplish or achieve anything. That starts with how I lead them. That starts with how I face challenges, how I achieve goals, how I go after things that I think are meant for me, and to not get discouraged if a door gets closed, but just find the right route to open the door, or find the key that I need to open the door that is meant for me. And I think we have to stay persistent in what we do. Whether you have people looking up to you or whether it's for yourself, you can't give up on yourself either. You can be your greatest inspiration. You can be the biggest motivator. You can be the person that tells you, hey, we got to get up and make this work. But you have to stay disciplined. You have to stay focused. And you can't get comfortable with being in comfort. You have to become uncomfortable in order to fully see who you truly are and grow into what you were meant to become. And I know that's scary, because how can you grow into something that you've never seen before? How can you truly walk the path that's meant for you if you have no clue of where it truly leads? But you know you're on the right path because you know what you used to do doesn't work. You know the people that you used to hang with aren't trying to see you grow. You know the places where you used to stand or where you used to hang have nothing there for you. So now you're walking this uncharted territory, and maybe it's a bigger thing because it's a generational curse that you're breaking, and you don't necessarily know how to go about it. Well, see, that's where faith comes into play. And that's where you have to walk by faith and not by sight. Just because you can see it doesn't mean it's actually what you need. Sometimes it's the unseen that's the best thing. See, we're very visual, especially men. We're visual. We get excited about things. We see stuff. We go, yes, that's what I want. And we think it's the greatest thing. And sometimes when we get it, it's the worst thing that we could have. But it's always the things that you don't see. It's the unknown. It's when walking in faith and truly trusting that where you're going is exactly where you're supposed to be, regardless of how scared it is, or regardless how scared you are, or the road that you're on. Like that's where it really starts to take like precedent in your life. So it's very important for you to, one, stay disciplined, but two, stay focused on your mission and on your path. And if you haven't written down your goals yet, what you waiting on? If you haven't changed how you think in the year 2024, if you're still stuck in 2023 mindset, you'll always move backwards. You got to be thinking forward and understanding that, yeah, I don't know how much time I have left, and I don't know where I'm headed next. I have to trust and believe that the steps that I'm taking are right. And if you're doing it in the right way, and if you're going about it with a positive attitude, if you do start to stray or if you misstep, I truly believe that because you're going with the right heart and you're going with the right mind and you're truly trusting, you'll be guided in the right direction because you want to do well. And, as I sit and reflect more and more and more, I think about like people who keep going down the same path, even though they're told, hey, this ain't where you're supposed to be. I look at some of my former players and I see some of them who are really thriving, and they're going to school, and they're, chasing after dreams. And, I see former students who are married now or they're working and they're chasing after what they're supposed to do. And I love that. And I want that for everybody. But I also know that it doesn't happen for everybody. And, there's a couple of people that I know that I look back at and I see that they did a different path. And so right now they're trying to get back up, or they're trying to deal with what they see and really like put themselves in position to be better. And all I can do is pray for them folks because I want them to do well. And all I can hope for is that the example that I leave is something that they can grasp to. But also know that like I'm not perfect and I struggle too. Um, which I hope that I hope you don't think that this podcast is me talking to y'all like I'm some expert. I'm perfect. I'm going through it too. Everything that I talk to you about, I'm dealing with. Everything that I'm telling you to face, I'm gonna face. Every challenge I'm telling you to do, I'm gonna do. Because I can't tell you what to do and then not go about it. Doesn't make sense. If I tell you, hey, I need you to stay positive, then it's not gonna make any sense for me to live in negativity. If I tell you, hey, if you know it's a challenge that you're facing, we gotta find a way to get through it. It's not gonna make sense for me to turn away from it and run away. Because I'll be telling you all this, and the crazy part is you'll grow in exactly where you need to be, and I'll still be standing in the same spot going, oh man, I should have done that. So it doesn't make sense to play small, when we are meant for something so much greater. I'm pretty sure that's a quote. I can't remember it right off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's something. You leave it in the comment if you remember it. Um, but yeah, I think, sometimes the change of direction is also good for just your well-being. I remember being in a position where I was working and it was putting a strain on family. It was putting a strain on my personal life, my mental health, and all those things, which is probably why I really struggle with anxiety. But it wasn't until I had to face it and say, okay, you know what? This is what I really need. This is what I'm looking for. That's better for me, my family, and everybody involved. And once I finally achieved it, it was so much better. And it was also something I was like, I never thought I'd be in this position. But you got to trust and believe that if you put 100% effort in, everything else will fall into place. But you also have to be willing to give the effort in order for the things to fall in place. I think some people want the reward, but they don't want to do what's necessary to gain the reward. People want the social status, they want the title, they want the money, but they're not willing to put forth the effort. You got to be willing to roll your sleeves up and really grind hard at this thing if that's what you really want. Because opportunity really doesn't wait for anybody. It shows itself to those that are working hard and chasing after their goals. That's usually when the opportunities come up. You can't get discouraged if you're not working hard. Doesn't make any sense. And honestly, if you still are stuck in your old ways, how can you expect new blessings? If you keep doing the same thing, how can you expect a different result? If you keep putting yourself in the same position, how do you expect to win? It doesn't make sense. It causes for you to make a change. It's like that, it's that aha moment of I've been doing this for so long and it hasn't been working. So now I have to ask myself, am I going to stick with this and just maintain it because it's comfortable? Or am I really going to weigh out what I can do and see just how valuable I am? Can I do that? Am I strong enough to do that? If I'm not, let me find people that I've seen doing it so I can follow their lead. It's tough, man. It's very tough. But I don't want you to be discouraged either. I want you to utilize the time that you have in front of you and use it to the best of your ability. See, every day we wake up, we have a new opportunity. We have a new purpose, or not necessarily a new purpose, but we're able to continue the purpose that's called for us. Now, I truly believe that God has something for all of us, the believer and the non-believer. I believe that for the believer, it's been put in our hearts to chase after exactly what it is that he wants us to do. And as you draw closer, it starts to become clearer as to where you're supposed to go. For the non-believer, it's not so much putting this is what I want you to do, but it's more so I need you to know that as much as you want control and you want to do this for yourself, it's so much easier if you let me lead the way. That's my prayer for non-believers, is that they truly trust that God will lead them to where they need to be. And then for my believers, I pray that we continue to trust that he will lead us to where we need to be. Because reality is, no matter how hard you try to do it on your own, you can't do it by yourself. And I think another lesson that I've learned is that what I do, well, let me back up. The change of direction is so important because it also provides a clarity that maybe you didn't have before. And when I relate that to my faith, changing direction and allowing God to then lead rather than me take the wheel is probably the best thing that I can do, because he's going to know all the things that lie ahead. But I have to walk by faith and trust that it's going to be okay. I also can't take for granted the time that's given to me. And I think when you fall in comfort, you also allow time to just be something that you feel like you have an infinite amount of. And the reality is that it's not about that. The other thing too is, ultimately, when you're going after what your purpose is, it's really not about you either. It's about God's glory and the people that you're going to bring to him through what your gift is. I start to realize that more and more when I realize that I'm going further away from him. But now I have to focus on drawing closer, so that way I can truly be in the position where he wants me to be. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's scary because I'm not used to that because I've always been like, well, I got to do it on my own. But the reality is I really don't have to. And it's not about me. It's not about how great this podcast does. It's about how he speaks through me and how I'm able to connect with you all, with the hope that you'll turn and grow in that aspect. And I don't always talk about like my faith and things like that, but I hope that through what I do, you can see it. And I hope that for you, you build a relationship too. I really, with the way that things are going in this world, I really hope and pray that you take the time to build a relationship for yourself, because I realize that I have to build one too. And like I said, I am not going to tell you to do something that I'm not doing. So I got to get back on my grind and I got to get myself refocused and do what I'm supposed to do. And I know that there's days where it's just going to feel like, man, is this paying off? But I would hate the alternative of, man, I should have done more. I don't want that. And I think that's another reason why we need to change direction. Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in driving that cruise control that because we took our foot off the gas and we just chilling, we don't necessarily know when we're supposed to accelerate. We also don't know when we're supposed to slow down. We let the world dictate to us where we're supposed to be. And then next thing you know, you're headed down a path of destruction instead of heading down a path that was meant for you in order for you to be great. We can't let distractions dictate where we go. The focus has to be so important. And if you know you're heading down the wrong path, why wouldn't you change direction? Like if you were going on a road trip and your GPS kept telling you that you were going in the wrong direction, why would you keep driving in that direction? You would immediately turn around so you could reach your destination. So what is your destination? Destruction or eternity? Where do you want to be when this is all said and done? Because ultimately, you're going to leave an impact on the earth in some way, shape, or form. Ultimately, you're going to be known for something. I just hope that it's something that people can hang on to and stay positive with and grow from. You know, when I think of my two basketball players that were lost to gun violence, I can hold on to things from them. Specifically from Reno, what I learned is that when he was first like coming up through basketball, he wasn't deterred by his size. Other people talked about his size. He didn't see himself that way. He saw himself as a giant that could hang with the big dogs, and he proved it. And nobody would question that. When I think of Emmanuel, I think of at first, a soft-spoken kid who then finally was able to identify who he was, and he stood true in it in everything up until the day of his demise. He was always true to himself. That's something I can hold on to. I learned from them. So if I can learn from them, I know that there's something in me that I should be able to give to others. So maybe I have to analyze, where am I going? Maybe you have to analyze, what road have I been on? You know, am I going in the right direction? And if I don't know, I need guidance. And where do I turn to for guidance? I know where I'm turning to. Where are you going? Who do you believe in? You know, I know God is real, so I got to put my trust in him. I pray you do the same. And I just hope that as life goes on, you start to use your discernment and analyze where you're headed. There's so many dead ends out there. And a lot of people are blindly. Let's run that back. What was that? What are we doing? Okay. So there's so many dead ends out there. And so many people are blindly driving toward those dead ends, not realizing that if they just took the time to look at their navigation, and if they just change direction, they could be headed where the light is. And sometimes when you change direction and you're looking for where you're supposed to be, you got to cut the lights on, right? Because it's dark, right? When you're trying to figure out where you are. But what I mean by that is sometimes internally you have to turn the light on, and you have to analyze what you're doing. You have to analyze where you're headed, what your thoughts are. What do you put in your mind? What words are you using? Are you staying positive, or are you talking negative to yourself? Are you surrounding yourself around positivity, or are you lying in negativity? And if you're lying in negativity, when do you decide to rise up? When do you decide to stand strong? When do you decide to finally get yourself out of that position and put yourself in a positive position? You know, those are things that I want for you. I want you to have an amazing life, and I want you to go after what it is that God truly has for you. But in order to do that, one, you're going to have to let go and let God. And two, if you're going down the wrong path, then maybe it's time to change directions. And so my task for you this week is to take time with each day that you get to truly analyze, where are you headed? Are you on the right path? Are you following where you're supposed to go? Or are you trying to follow after others? Are you trying to be like everybody else because you think that your path isn't good enough or strong enough? Please note that the path that you walk and the destination that you're headed to is so vital to so many people around you. But if you abandon it, you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting everybody else who is counting on you to get there, whether you see them or not. You are a leader. You have that instilled in you. Now, will you live in comfort, or will you finally change direction and allow yourself to move where you're supposed to be? And that's my task. So, with all that being said, I want what's best for you. I want you to do well. I want you to grow. I want you to be successful. And only you know if you're going in the right direction. Only you know if you're headed toward greatness or destruction. So it's up to you to ask yourself, am I going down the right path, or do I need to change direction? Don't doubt yourself. Do not be anxious about anything. Don't worry. And more importantly, believe in yourself. Please do. because you are meant for something great. Otherwise, why would you still have time? Not saying that those who aren't here didn't have time, but you're still here for a reason. So go make it happen. And just remember this. I believe in you. I gotta believe in yourself. See Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm Ed. We out.
These thoughts up in my head. Things I never did. I took some L's, but I'm still here. I got these thoughts up in my head. I toss and turn about some things I never said. I got regrets about some things I never did. I took some risks and took some L's, but I'm still here. And I know. And I know.